So, is the Philippine Republic being pushed to its absolute breaking point? Well, according to a pretty provocative column by Rigoberto Tiglao, the answer is a resounding yes. He argues the nation is facing something he calls a stress test. So, in this explainer, we're going to dive deep into his argument and figure out what this test is all about. So, at the very heart of Tiglao's column is this powerful idea of a republic stress test. Now, what does he mean by that? He describes it as that critical moment when a president faces serious, credible allegations of corruption. It's the ultimate test of a nation's institutions. Can Congress, the courts, all the supposed watchdogs, can they actually do their job when the pressure is really on? That's the core question he's getting at. Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question his piece poses. Is the system in the Philippines actually passing this test right now? Let's dig into the evidence that he lays out. All right, so what exactly kicked off this whole stress test he's talking about? Well, according to the column, it all boils down to one single massive allegation. We're talking about a 70 billion peso accusation aimed right at the very top. And the person who made this accusation, a former congressman named Zaldi Ko. Now, the author makes a really important point here. Ko isn't some random outsider. No, he's deep inside the political establishment. And Tiglao's argument is that this is exactly what makes the allegations so credible, so heavy. And here it is, the number at the absolute center of this whole thing. 70 billion pesos. Just let that sink in for a second. The author really wants you to grasp the sheer, mind-boggling scale of what's being alleged here. Now, to really wrap your head around just how huge that number is, the column makes a pretty jaw-dropping comparison. Think back to 2000, right? President Estrada was impeached over allegations that, in today's money, would be worth about 1.5 billion pesos. Okay? Now, this new allegation, it's 47 times bigger. According to the author, that difference in scale is exactly why this current stress test is on a whole other level. But, the author's point isn't just about the money. Not at all. He goes way deeper, and this is where it gets really interesting. He starts comparing how the country's institutions reacted, creating what he calls a tale of two scandals. Okay, so this timeline he lays out really puts it into sharp focus. You see, back in 2000, when Chavit Singzon accused President Estrada, bam! By December, Congress was already starting impeachment proceedings, a super fast response. But now, with this more recent accusation, and we should probably note the slide says 2025, but we're talking about a current event, the author's point is that there's just silence, a profound inaction from the very same institution. He also points out that the type of accusation is different too. With Estrada, it was about alleged kickbacks from things like illegal gambling and taxes, right? But this time, the author frames it as something much more direct, much more fundamental. We're talking about the alleged hijacking of the entire national budget. And this right here, this is the core of his critique of Congress. He paints this picture of two completely different bodies. Back then, you had what he calls a bold Congress with a conscience. But now, he describes it as a cowardly and/or bribed Congress. For him, you just can't get a more black and white difference than that. And hey, it's not just Congress under his microscope. He uses that exact same then versus now comparison for the Ombudsman's office. He points out that during the Estrada scandal, that office jumped in and investigated. But today, he calls their passivity alarming. So all of this builds up to a really crucial part of his argument. The idea that the country's most important watchdogs are, well, asleep at the wheel. So let's really get into the weeds of his specific criticisms of both Congress and the Ombudsman. And believe me, the author does not pull any punches. He uses this quote, "This is not just cowardice, it is complicity by omission." His point is that by doing nothing, Congress isn't just being passive, they're actually part of the problem. That idea, complicity by omission, is absolutely central to his whole case. And he's quick to point out that lawmakers aren't powerless here. Far from it. I mean, look at the tools they have. They can subpoena documents like SALNs and bank records, they can hold inquiries, they can call witnesses to testify under oath, offer them protection, and maybe most importantly, they control the power of the purse. The author's whole point is that the toolkit is full. What's missing, in his view, is simply the will to open it up. All right, so after talking about Congress, the author pivots to another key institution. And this is a big one. It's the office that was literally created to be the protector of the people, the Ombudsman. And again, he uses a really powerful phrase to sum up his argument: deafening silence.
See, he contends that the ombudsman is supposed to act motu proprio. That's a fancy Latin term that just means on its own initiative. They don't have to wait for someone to file a complaint. And the fact that they haven't even started a simple fact-finding mission, for the author, that sends a truly terrible signal.
Okay, so what's the big deal? What's the real-world consequence of all this alleged inaction? Well, according to Tiglao, this is about way more than just one case. He argues it creates something incredibly dangerous, a culture of impunity. And this is what he means by a chilling effect. The article's argument is that when these big, powerful institutions don't have a whistleblower's back, it sends a very clear and very scary message to anyone else who might be thinking about coming forward. And that message is, if you speak up, you are completely on your own. And he actually breaks down how this vicious cycle gets started. It's pretty simple, really. Step 1, a whistleblower comes out with credible allegations. Step 2, the institutions that are supposed to investigate just don't. Step 3, that whistleblower is left high and dry, totally alone, and the story fades away. And the final step, the lesson that everyone else learns from watching this happen, it's just safer to stay quiet. This all builds to what is honestly a pretty dramatic conclusion in his column. He draws this very stark historical parallel. He says, the elder Marcos destroyed the Republic by imposing authoritarian rule. But then he argues that the son is destroying the Republic in a different way, by weakening its two branches, Congress and the judiciary. In his view, it's about hollowing out the very institutions that are supposed to be the guardrails of democracy. So in the end, the column doesn't really give you an easy answer. Instead, it leaves you with this really heavy question, and it's a question that's bigger than any one politician or any single scandal. It's about the long-term health of democracy itself. The author basically asks us to consider, what is the real ultimate cost when a nation's watchdogs just fall silent?